The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Hello and welcome to the new episode of Mindfulness in Action. My name is Dalida and today I'm going to be sharing about mindfulness in difficult relationships, and it's beginning with a slight difficulty. This episode was supposed to be with a guest that had to cancel last minute. But in the next episode, she's going to join me, and we will be talking about challenges of neurodiverse couples. And I was all ready to explore that topic. And when we had to cancel the last minute, I'm coming in a little bit unprepared. And at the same time, vulnerable. So I will just be vulnerable today and share some of life experiences that have been present for me recently. One of them being my difficult relationship with myself, with one of my parts that I call the expert. And the expert has been showing up in my life a lot, and I'm so grateful to it. To her, my puppy is me in this reflection, and the expert came in at times when I needed it the most to really learn through sharing with others on what really was important for me, and that was to figure out how can I shift my perspective and come to the present moment and be mindful of what is happening in my body, in my relationship with the world. And mindfulness really offered a lot that increased my capacity to live, really. And for that, I am really grateful. The expert learned about mindfulness and also became a teacher, and then used it in coaching and all of that. Beautiful. But there was one thing that expert prevented me from, and that is to really become intimate with myself, to connect with parts that didn't know, to connect with parts that were still insecure and afraid. There's a lot about fear that the expert was kind of like putting on the side, and also the other side, the part that wanted to stand out and be noticed and seen and give all of these beautiful topics and knowledge and share it with others. And she needed to be adored. And these are really most recent realizations. I feel very fragile as I'm sharing this. And yet really proud that I could see it. And how did it all come out? It's with one of my most difficult relationships, external relationships with a person that means a lot to me, my father, who this week ended up in the hospital. And we're all concerned about his health. He's 86, and it's natural to hold those times when elderly go through their vulnerabilities, and then need to we have that one question: what is going to happen? Are they going to survive? Will they live forever? And as we know, they won't. And my father will certainly leave this world at one time. But one question I have is, as we come to those times of the final departure, will our relationship heal? And to which extent? He's a very difficult man to talk to, and very unemotional, and he guards himself of emotions a lot, which triggers different responses within me. And these responses, as I learned just this week, are in one side, the part that wants to be adored, and she can be angry with him and is saying, like, why you didn't give me what I needed, and why did you disappear from my life? And the other part is really fearful, and she's so afraid of everything, of she just rather sit all alone, closed, and never go out, and just go into her inner world and make herself smaller than a speck of dust, as it came into my reflections. So I'm actually going to read something that is a little bit like a poem, and then see where that takes me from here. What is difficult about my relationship with my father? His unavailability, his silence, the missing times of playfulness, the fact that I adored him once and then got disappointed because he failed me at being perfect. Yesterday, I received an invitation to sit with him in an imaginary space and meet him one more time as a child. And it was a surprise that instead of one, two of me came in. One confident and resourceful, full of herself. All she wanted was to be adored. And the other, smaller than a speck of dust, afraid of every comment he made. On the other side of the room, he is sitting in a sofa chair, silent as usual, not seeing, not hearing me. But this time, it didn't matter. I let him be who he is and turn lovingly toward the twins. It's them who need parenting. And I finally show up in that role. And so releasing my father from the role of being the parent of those twins feels really empowering, liberating. And coming back to mindfulness, a lot of times we share that mindfulness helps us to be calm, to accept things, or to be focused, to regulate stress. And I want to remind everyone again that the core purpose of this practice was liberation, to be liberated of a perspective that is keeping us stuck in a chain of emotional responsiveness, or of interpretation of what the situation is about. In a way, to find a place where we can just see the perspective in its fullness, as connected with the whole humanity and the whole life as well, where we then just become, in a way, unimportant. One of the first lessons when it comes to the relationship with family that I explored was from Ram Dass. He was a psychologist who went for a short trip to India and then stayed there. really got deep into the practice, got his guru, and explored his path of enlightenment. And from having a Western name, Richard, he became Ram Das, and his identity was fully embodied in India. He had his robes and all of that. And in his story, he said when he would prepare to go from India back to US and visit his family, that there would be these elements of shedding the identity, his identity of the guru. And first layer of shedding the identity was taking his robes off and putting the jeans and the t-shirt. And then the next layer was leaving the ashram and then going with the taxi or the vehicle, however, to the airport. At the airport, he's not Ram Das anymore. He takes his passport and show his identity that is showing him as a citizen of the US. And then as he's traveling back, he's arriving to America again, another shift of the perspective, renting the car and then driving to his home, entering the street. His name is slowly coming in and resonating from the time of the childhood, right? And instead of being Richard, he's Ricky. And then he goes and rings the bell on the house. And then immediately, as the door opens, just hears his mother's voice, Ricky. Critical, of course, right? And he goes right back into being a child with all his responsiveness, and all that practice just goes out of the door. And I really liked this story when I heard it, but when I heard it and I really understood it, I was thousands of kilometers away. I was living in China, and I was nowhere near living near my family. And as many of you are familiar already, I am back. And last year I had a big rupture in my relationship with my father, and there was this avalanche of anger that came, or like volcano maybe, that came out of me. And he was definitely not expecting any of that. He couldn't see my anger coming in because it was wrapped up with silence from both sides. I tried to tell him somehow, but there was no space to listen. And then anger came in, really like the anger of Kali, goddess Kali, who gets blinded and then goes and slays everything and everyone around her, because she can't distinguish anymore who is human and who is the demon. And in that process of allowing my anger to come out and expressing my own truth as I thought it was the truth at that time, but at least it was a partial truth. What happened after that was months of silence and disconnection. And then something beautiful began to happen. I actually could see that in his own way, he was trying to reconnect with me. And in her own way, my mother was also trying to help us to reconnect. And in my own way, no matter how small, I was also trying to reconnect. And slowly, bit by bit, we established the time when we could sit in the same room, and despite the differences, just learn what to say so that the relationship was nourishing, rather than stepping on the minefield and coming in with all that hurt and pain, disappointment from both sides. I believe he felt abandoned because I was not there for 30 years, and I felt abandoned because he left me when I was a child in his own way. So how does mindfulness really help? How does mindfulness really help? In this experience, what I learned is that being mindful of my physical experience while being with him in the same room could sometimes increase the intensity of the emotions. So going deep into how I was feeling, the awareness of my body was actually not helpful. I needed to find a way where I could soothe my presence, reminding me in whichever way that I'm safe, that I am free from the past stories, or in whichever way I was doing it. In a way, I needed to create boundaries that could help me to feel safe. And in a way, being mindful of that, really knowing what are the boundaries and what is that safe space is absolutely important when managing difficult relationships. It is important to also know when to step out and when to remove ourselves from the difficult situation. Now, my difficulty was because of my father's silence and disconnection. I really felt the pain of disconnection. I felt the pain of his frown, or even if dismissiveness in his voice, lack of presence. And part of me was probably also yearning for connection, but I didn't know how to do it. Neither did he. And the capacity also to stay in a difficult relationship, because I willingly exposed myself to still meeting my father, even though it was difficult. But this time also knowing how long I can do that. That was also important part of knowing the structure of time, that having a lunch was okay, but staying longer was not okay. And I knew that this space for me to come and go would help me in a way. So knowing boundaries, knowing how long we can stay connected with a difficult emotion or difficult relationship in this case is really important. Another thing I really learned from brothers and sisters at Plum Village was that when you're feeling resourceful, sit and hold the emotion. When there's anxiety that comes in, then maybe sitting is not quite good. Go and take a walk. And when you're angry, go and run. It's okay to run and meditate. So I made sure that I would go and engage my body after those meetings as well. But looking back at all of this, and now I realized that ultimately what I really didn't know was what were my needs. And I really put a lot of pressure on my father to give me what I didn't even know what I needed. And then even projected these relationships outside of the family. It might sound like like a lot to handle, but the difficulty suddenly dissolved when I released him from the relationship, and responsibility to be my parent. And that moment when there is also some form of the shift of the roles, where I began to claim my right to be a parent to my inner child, but also to see the child in him. And this is another practice that Plum Village brings. It's bringing the perspective of seeing our parents when they're 5-year-old, and how might they have been afraid? How were they really cut off from the emotional nourishment of their parents, or were they really seen, and so on? And I certainly know that my father wasn't. The moment of compassion can really dissolve these dynamics, internal dynamics, and the moment when that anger can shift into understanding. I really knew I was liberated, and I suddenly realized that everything he's done didn't have anything to do with me. It had to do all with him. And although I didn't have the capacity to see that as a 5-year-old child, 10, maybe 23, 30-year-old woman, or 40, and all the way until I became 56, and it feels like the new beginning. It's never too late, and I'm grateful for that. And I would like to share another poem. It's called Blessing, written by John O'Donoghue. For the end, I'm just hoping that for those who are struggling in their relationships with their family and their parents, you can find some ease, knowing you're not alone. And I hope these verses also bring some nourishment to you. Blessing by John O'Donoghue. On the day when the weight deadens on your shoulder and you stumble, may the clay dance to balance you. And when your eyes freeze behind the gray window and the ghost of loss gets into you, may a flock of colors, indigo, red, green, and azure blue, come to awaken in you a meadow of delight. When the canvas frays in the crush of thought and the stain of ocean blackens beneath you, may there come across the waters of a path of yellow moonlight to bring you safely home. May the nourishment of the earth be yours. May the clarity of light be yours. May the fluency of the ocean be yours. May the protection of the ancestors be yours. And so may a slow wind work these words of love around you, an invisible cloak to mind your life. And so thank you for listening. And I hope you can tune in to next episode, where we are going to be talking about difficulties in neurodiverse relationships that are filled with misunderstanding. I have daily challenges. My guest will be Grace Mayhill, and for now, my name is Dalida Turkovic, and I will see you next time.